two fantastic people are going to be joining me in a nanosecond. The Leap 100, as Michael said, celebrates and brings together 100 fantastic companies who are growing super fast. And the reason we brought them together along with City AM, along with the Entrepreneurs Network, and along with the Supper Club, is because we're really interested in what it is that characterizes these businesses, what it is that makes them special, and what are the secrets underneath the bonnet of their businesses. So to help me and help you find out the answers to those, please welcome on stage right now Sara Murray, the founder and CEO and an OBE as well of Buddi, which is if you don't know, it's a personal tracking company, and that sounds really quite interesting and slightly worrying, but she will explain everything in a moment. Please welcome Sara Murray on the stage. Choose one of the many chairs. And Ed Bussey, he's the founder and CEO of Quill, and they are content creators. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ed Bussey. So first things first, because some people may be familiar with your businesses. Two quick questions for you both, and we'll go to Sara first. What is your business? What does it do? And how fast are you growing?
We make technology to see or to show where people are and how they are. So we operate in the criminal justice market. We make offender tags, and in the health market.
She's wearing one.
That's a buddy in health market. We have already in the first quarter achieved 70% of our full year's sales from last year. So we're growing at least 100% this year, even with no new customers.
Fantastic. Ed?
We're building what we'd call as a next generation content creation business, a new model of bespoke content, so words, images, graphics and video for brands around the world. And we do this with a global network of content creators who are working on a web-based platform with all the quality control done through a combination of in-house editors and software, and allows us to produce an almost unparalleled content in an almost unparalleled number of languages and across an unparalleled number of topics extremely quickly, much more cost effectively than is possible with the existing model. So up until the big end of last year, running at about 100% year on year. We're a 3-and-a-bit-year-old business. And this year, so far, we're tracking at 300% year-on-year growth. And to give you a sense of scale, we've got about 30 people on the in-house team, 700 people in our global network, and we'll produce of the order of 10 to 12 million words of bespoke content in 2015.
Now, inflation, as we all know, is at 0%. That's an extraordinary differential. Why? How? I mean, this isn't the first time. You're the founder of Confused.com as well. People may well know that, Sara. What is it, do you think, if there were 2 or 3 secrets to your success, what would they be?
Well, I don't think there are any secrets. I think everyone in the room knows what makes you grow a company. For me, it's been an absolute passion to deliver something that I had a vision for from the beginning. And all you need, really, is that absolute determination, a large addressable market, and a team that can develop and deliver the products and services that address the needs of that market.
Now, that you're right, they're not secrets, so what's the difference for you? Why are you better at bringing that vision to life and making it happen?
Better, okay.
Better than average, a lot better than average, 100% better than average.
So in my view, companies only fail because they run out of money. So as long as you've got enough money to keep going, you can keep going. The difference between just keeping going and being a very high growth company is about your determination to succeed and surrounding yourself with people who get stuff done. So we all know people who get stuff done versus people who talk about getting stuff done. And if you hire lots of people who get stuff done, then things happen and happen very quickly.
So Sara's got passion, she's got people around her. Is it exactly the same for you, Ed?
I'd agree with that. I think for us, I guess a couple of the extra things I'd add into that would be to achieve that sort of scale, quite often you need some form of software technology behind it. It's very difficult to scale a business that fast if it's purely people dependent. So I think one of the common denominators of many of the fast growth companies that we see is some element of software and technology. And my first hire was a CTO. We knew that the only way to do this, whilst respecting the need for great writers and great editors, was to underpin that with technology. I think the other thing potentially is we've come at an industry with no direct industry experience. I've come out of e-commerce having faced the problem of trying to build content into my web properties. I've not come from a publishing background. So we've been able to look at an industry from a blank sheet of paper and challenge some of the status quos around how the existing media publishing industry has been producing content for the last 50 years. And we've decided that in some areas the existing model is just not appropriate for this age.
So kind of healthy naivety, fresh eyes,
Yeah.
no preconceptions. You talked about businesses only fail, and maybe there are other reasons why they fail, but they only fail, you said, because they run out of money. You've both successfully raised lots of money. Why do people back you?
Well, there's the same reason you'd back anyone. You look them in the face, you look them in the eye, and you believe that they're going to make something out of the story they're telling you. Obviously, it's a lot easier to raise money if you've been successful before, because once you've got that track record, people believe you're not going to mess up. But at the end of the day, you invest in people, so it's convincing investors to invest in you.
Now, you didn't set your own business. This is the first business you set up, Ed. It's slightly different to Sarah, but you were involved, I think, in the Fig Leaves business. Yeah. Was it the same for you? They backed you. They looked in your eyes and they said, this is the man that can deliver.
I think having seen, if you've been through 2 startups before, so I think that sort of de-risks it from the investor's perspective, and clearly that's a factor. But ultimately, they've got to believe in your vision and your ability to execute on a plan to realise the vision. So I think it does come back down to that. Clearly, if you've done it before, it helps. I also think having developed relationships with a number of the investors over time, so they can track your progress with the business from inception, from the PowerPoint right the way through to the point you want them to write a cheque for £5 million, that has also helped. And I've made a point with some of my investor network just to keep them up to speed, and they can see that we've delivered each year, and actually that shows some predictability around the plan. And that, again, I think mitigates the risk for the prospective investor.
Now, people for the last 5, 6, 7 years have said there's no money in the system. The banks aren't lending, and there's other kind of cliches that people trot out. Things have slightly shifted. The money's been available for both of you. You've made the money available. Has it actually got easier in the last 5, 10 years as the sense of what an entrepreneurial culture looks like? Do you think actually now people going to raise money aren't as going to find it as difficult?
So when I started out the first time, everybody around me thought the same thing as my mother, which is she needs to go out and get a real job. So you would say to people, when people ask what you do, you'd say, I'm an entrepreneur, and people would just think, can't get a job, unemployed. Whereas nowadays, everybody's an entrepreneur, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, and that's really helpful. But that's really helpful at the early stage. So there is money available now, much more money, but more importantly, people know where to look for it now. There's a proliferation of help, largely through the internet, which enables people to connect with those who've got money when they've got a startup idea. So that ecosystem is fantastic, and that's really made a difference. But when you get to the stage beyond that, there is still a gap. There's a huge gap between that very easy to raise first few £100,000. It's, I can say it's easy to raise because for me it would be easy to raise. For someone starting out the first time, it's probably still quite hard to raise, but it is doable. But when you get to the 5 to 20 million pounds, it gets very difficult. I've sat there in front of people who've said, yeah, I definitely want to invest in your business. You just need to be a little bit bigger. So you go 3 months later and you say, okay, we're a little bit bigger, we've proven it. And they say, we've just raised a much bigger fund now. We need to do much bigger deal size, so you're just a bit small for us now. So it's always you're a bit small, a bit big. So you're looking for the funders who are offering the kind of money and the size you're looking for. And there is, I don't know if you found it as well, but certainly that 5 to 20 million, there is a gap.
And just as you answer that, just think about this. You both have successfully closed those deals. Eventually, it may not be quite right at the time. It's a bit like making a film, Eventually, you're going to find the right producer. You found the money. How did you actually close those deals at that time?
Well, we've done 2 external investment rounds. So the first one, our Series A round, we actually didn't want to go and raise any institutional money because felt, having been through the process a couple of times before, I actually wanted to get a group of digital entrepreneurs investing in the business who would bring considerably more value to us than the check. So most of our Series A was raised via angel investors, many of whom have built and exited digital business before. And I think one of the great things that I think is happening in the UK now, which brings us much closer to the sort of ecosystem we see in Silicon Valley, is that entrepreneurs who are building and exiting businesses now are reinvesting that money back here in the UK, which raises some interesting questions around taxation, because we need to keep those people in the UK so they can invest in businesses like ours, now. On the second, when we did our Series B, we were looking for 5 million, so we went out and then looked for institutional money for that. And I'd agree with Sarah. I think it is still hard. I mean, in the UK right now, it's certainly better than the rest of Europe, but there is a fifth of the money chasing a deal in the UK versus the US, and a tenth of the money per deal than in Israel. So we've come a long way, but particularly in that price bracket, there's a lot further to go. And one of the issues I think for us raising money is because there's less money per deal, there is downward pressure on valuation. So I know from my peers in the US, they're able to raise money for a comparable business at a similar stage at a significantly better valuation because there is simply greater competition from investors to get in. And that then causes another issue, which is, how long do UK entrepreneurs stay with their businesses? And if you're already down to sort of 10, 20% after a couple of rounds, the pressure personally is then to potentially start thinking about exit sooner before you get too further diluted.
So from my point of view in that space, so we've just gone out and looking for a very significant chunk of money, and I just approached 3 very large corporates. In fact, one is one of the biggest corporates in the Southern Hemisphere, and I approached them on the basis of, look, you've got a huge balance sheet, we can help your business to grow in your own markets. And managed to get those offers very quickly. So I think this taking money from corporates and encouraging them to invest in young, high-growth companies, particularly in the technology space, is a new area, and we'll be making some announcements soon. And I think it's very important.
Now, you talked about ecosystems, both of you. I love this. I love the language that hits the entrepreneurial world. Suddenly we've gone into something else. Political ecosystem. We've heard lots of different people have different opinions. Rory Bremner touched on practically every single opinion that's possibly out there as we move towards the vote next week. How, if you had control of the government, you were running it, from a business perspective, what are the first 3 things you do in your first 90 days? Sarah's looking at Ed, so we'll start with Ed.
I think one of the things I'm finding really frustrating about, it's sort of an indirect answer to a question. One of the things that I'm finding really frustrating about this whole campaign is incredibly contrived, not just in terms of the sound bites that we seem to be being fed, but I voted for both parties in the major parties in the past. I spoke to somebody who's close to Ed Miliband, and I'm saying, what's all this sort of anti-business rhetoric? Because most people, they clearly don't understand business, and I think Lord Billamore was saying, that's really frustrating. Any good business understands you've got to treat your staff well, you've got to be respectful of the environment, and you pay your taxes. And it's a sort of blanket criticize all the wealth creators and all the people who are trying to build business and take the risks around that with some of these broad brush policies is quite alienating. And the response when I put that was, but you're not in the target markets for us as a party right now. So not only I think are the sound bites being contrived, but I think the policies are being contrived to win a core vote. And I guess my answer, the more direct answer to the question is, why can we not have a political agenda which is about trying to design solutions to the country's problems in a much more pragmatic way, rather than this sort of soundbite politics and soundbite solutions? Because I think it patronizes anyone that's got any intelligence around what the solutions are to some of our national problems.
So if that's the big thing around, we need solutions to practical problems that strip the politics out almost. Yeah. What would that look like from your point of view, Prime Minister Sarah?
So for me, there are only 2 things that I would do in that first 90 days, but they are both very, very significant and would make such a big difference to business, and I have mentioned them in the past. So the first one is opening up government procurement to SMEs. There's been a huge amount of rhetoric about it, but it really needs to happen, and it hasn't happened yet, and my hope for a new government is that they will really do something about it. And the second one is what I've already mentioned, which is the corporate venturing. The reason that there is a huge amount of money in Israel is quite simply because of the Yozma program, where the Israeli government got behind foreign investors coming into Israel and investing in Israeli companies. We need to do that, and there's a huge amount of money sitting on corporate balance sheets. All it needs is the government to give a significant tax incentive to corporates to help them or encourage them to invest in companies, and that would provide the funding necessary.
Now, final question, because we're running out of time. Success and failure, people say treat them the same way. You're both on a ride. You both obviously enjoy the ride. Is growth the only thing that drives you in the middle of that? Or are there other things that make you happy?
You never actually aim for growth. I mean, growth is something that happens. It's a description of what is happening to the business. You are absolutely clear on where you are taking the company. You have a product or service you want to put into a market, and all you think about is how to get that product or service into the market. If you do that well and you operate well, you have growth.
Happen.
Yeah.
Well, I think two points on that. One would be, I think it's inconceivable in this day and age you can build a brand where you are not thinking about some form of purpose beyond profit. That's why I really object to some of the language that comes out in the political narrative. So I think those two things go together. And what's, I think, really inspiring about the younger generation, who are unfairly, in many cases, being labelled as lazy, sort of entitled, etc., our experience is very different. They work incredibly hard. They're really passionate, and more passionate, not just about building a great business, but they actually want to make a difference within the business, but also beyond the business. And I think that's really inspiring. So I think it isn't just about growth and profit. I think we need to be thinking about businesses as broader entities that have an impact around them, and how can that impact be a positive one. And I think the great businesses of tomorrow will get both of those things right, not just the one.
And what a great way to end. Thank you both so much. Do track through the Elite 100 the next 9-10 months the fortunes of these two companies and the other 98 as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please put a round of applause for Ed Bussey and Sara Murray.